A single English knight spotted his chance to end a war. Henry de Bohun was young, ambitious, and armored in 60 pounds of steel. Across the field, sitting exposed on a small grey horse, was the King of Scotland himself, Robert the Bruce. No bodyguards, no heavy armor, just a crown and a hand axe. De Bohun didn't hesitate. He kicked his warhorse into a full gallop, lowered his 12-foot lance, and aimed directly at Robert's chest. This was it. One strike. The rebellion dies. England wins. His name lives forever. The Scottish army watched in horror. Their king wasn't moving. At the last possible second, and I mean the last second, Robert pulled his horse to the side, rose in his stirrups, and swung his battle axe downward with everything he had. The axe went straight through de Bohun's helmet, through his skull. The knight was dead before he hit the ground. Robert looked down at his shattered weapon and said, "And this is historically recorded. I have broken my good axe." That single moment changed the psychology of an entire war. Because what happened over the next 30 to 6 hours wasn't just a battle. It was a masterclass in how a smaller, poorer, supposedly weaker force can systematically dismantle the most expensive military machine in medieval Europe. This is the Battle of Bannockburn. And by the end of this video, you'll understand exactly how 5,000 Scottish soldiers eliminated an English army of 25,000, and why military strategists still study this battle 700 years later. To understand Bannockburn, you need to understand what Scotland had already survived. For nearly 20 years before this battle, England had been systematically trying to erase Scotland from the map. Edward I, the previous English king known as the Hammer of the Scots, had invaded multiple times, executed Scottish leaders, stolen the Stone of Destiny, Scotland's coronation stone, and installed English governors in every major fortress. By 1314, Robert the Bruce had spent 8 years clawing back his kingdom one castle at a time. He'd gone from hiding in caves, eating scraps, watching his allies get executed, to controlling almost all of Scotland. Almost. One fortress remained, Stirling Castle, and this is where the story gets complicated. Robert's brother, Edward Bruce, had made a deal with the English governor of Stirling. If English reinforcements didn't arrive by Midsummer's Day, June 24, 1314, the castle would surrender peacefully. Robert was furious when he heard this. Why? Because this deal forced the English to come. It gave them a deadline and a reason to mobilize everything they had. And that's exactly what happened. Edward II, son of the Hammer, assembled what historians consider one of the largest military forces ever gathered in medieval Britain. The numbers are staggering. Approximately 2,000 heavy cavalry, knights in full plate armor on massive warhorses bred specifically for war. Each of these units cost more than a peasant would earn in a lifetime. Behind them marched somewhere between 15 and 20,000 infantry, including companies of Welsh longbowmen, the most lethal ranged weapon of the medieval period. The longbow could punch through armor at 200 yards. A trained archer could loose 12 arrows per minute. The English had thousands of them. This wasn't just an army. This was an investment. Edward had taken loans from Italian bankers. He'd summoned every noble who owed him military service. He'd stripped garrisons from across England. The message was clear. Scotland ends now. Robert the Bruce looked at this approaching nightmare and saw an opportunity. Here's what most people miss about Bannockburn. Robert never planned to fight a traditional battle. He knew, with absolute certainty, that if the English cavalry got a clean charge across open ground, his army would be destroyed in minutes. So he made sure that would never happen. The area south of Stirling Castle is defined by two features: the Bannockburn, a marshy stream with steep, muddy banks and dense patches of woodland. Robert spent days before the battle preparing this ground. His engineers dug hundreds of concealed pits across the most likely cavalry approaches. These weren't deep enough to kill. They were designed to break horses' legs, to create chaos, to turn a thundering charge into a screaming pile of metal and flesh. He positioned his army in the new park, a wooded area that prevented the English from using their numerical advantage. You can't encircle an enemy if there's forest on their flanks. And then there was the formation that made Scottish infantry legendary, the Schiltron. The Schiltron was a defensive formation where soldiers stood shoulder to shoulder, their enormous pikes creating a wall of steel points that no horse would willingly charge into. Horses are intelligent animals. They won't impale themselves no matter how hard their rider kicks. But here's what made Robert's Schiltrons different from everyone else's. He trained them to move. Traditional Schiltrons were static. You planted them like a fortress and hoped the enemy broke against them. Robert drilled his men until they could advance as a unit, slowly, methodically, pushing forward while maintaining that impenetrable wall of spear points. This turned defensive formation into an offensive weapon, and the English had never faced anything like it. The English vanguard arrived in the afternoon, eager to cross the Bannockburn and establish a position before the main army caught up. This is when de Bohun made his fatal charge, and his death wasn't just a personal tragedy for the English. It was a psychological catastrophe. Their best knights, their finest cavalry, had been stopped cold by pit traps, dense formations, and a king who killed champions in single combat. The English commanders made a decision that would cost them everything. Instead of retreating to regroup, they pushed the entire army across the streams during the night. By dawn on June 24th, 25,000 English soldiers were crammed into a narrow strip of boggy ground between the Bannockburn and another stream called the Pelstream. They had water on two sides, the Scottish army in front of them, and no room to maneuver. They had walked directly into Robert's trap. When the sun rose, the English commanders realized their situation but believed numbers would still carry the day. They formed up for a cavalry charge. It never reached full speed. The ground was too soft. The space was too cramped. The Scottish Schiltrons advanced, and this is crucial, into the English before they could build momentum. Cavalry need distance to charge. They need speed to generate the impact that breaks infantry lines. Robert denied them both. His spearmen walked forward, and the English knights found themselves trying to fight a wall of pike points from stationary horses. And then came the disaster with the longbowmen. The English archers were the most dangerous element of their army. At Crecy and Agincourt, English longbows would devastate French cavalry. But at Bannockburn, the archers couldn't find clear shooting lanes. Their own cavalry was packed so tightly against the Scottish lines that any arrows fired would hit English knights in the back. When a group of archers finally moved to a flanking position, Robert unleashed his small reserve of light cavalry, 500 horsemen who had been waiting for exactly this moment. They scattered the archers before a single organized volley could be loosed. The most lethal weapon in England's arsenal had been completely neutralized. What happened next wasn't a battle anymore. It was mathematics. The Scottish schiltrons kept pushing forward. The English kept getting pressed backward, into the mud, into the streams, into each other. Knights who fell from their horses couldn't stand up in 60 pounds of armor. Men drowned in water, 2 feet deep, because they couldn't rise with the weight of steel on their backs. The breaking point came when Edward II's personal guard forced the king to leave the field. The moment the royal banner started retreating, discipline evaporated. An army of 25,000 became 25,000 individuals trying to survive. The Scots chased them for miles. Hundreds drowned in the Bannockburn. Hundreds more were cut down trying to cross the Forth River. The Earl of Gloucester, one of England's highest nobles, died in the crush. Over 100 English lords and knights were captured. The English dead numbered in the thousands. Scottish losses were minimal, perhaps a few hundred. The prisoners taken at Bannockburn became Robert's greatest diplomatic weapon. He exchanged them for his wife Elizabeth, his daughter Marjorie, and his sisters, all of whom had been held captive in England for 8 years. But the larger victory was psychological and political. Bannockburn proved that the English military machine, the most feared in Europe, could be defeated, not by another great kingdom, but by a small nation that refused to disappear. The war continued for another 14 years, but the outcome was now inevitable. In 1328, England formally recognized Scotland as an independent sovereign nation through the Treaty of Edinburgh-Northampton. Military historians study Bannockburn because Robert the Bruce demonstrated principles that never become obsolete. Terrain selection wins battles before they start. Robert didn't fight where the English wanted. He made them fight where he wanted. Neutralize the enemy's strongest weapon. The longbow was devastating in open fields. Robert made sure there were no open fields. Discipline beats numbers. The schiltrons worked because every man trusted the men beside him. That trust was built through relentless training. Psychological momentum is real. Killing de Bohun didn't change the odds mathematically, but it changed what both armies believed was possible. Robert the Bruce entered the battle as a king whose crown was contested by an empire. He left as the man who proved that empire could bleed. 5,000 against 25,000. Spears against cavalry. Mud against money. And Scotland survived. If this breakdown of medieval military strategy was valuable to you, subscribe to the channel. We're going deep on history's most decisive battles and the tactical decisions that shaped the world you live in now. I'll see you in the next one.